Okay, so now let us see the second process of chemical weathering is hydrolysis. So hydrolysis also called the incongruent dissolution. Incongruent dissolution means there is a not complete dissolution. In congruent or simple solution, you all see that there is a complete dissolution. Like if we take the example NaCl, that is completely dissociated into Na plus Cl minus. But here is not like that. In this hydrolysis, as name suggested, hydro means water, H2O, and lysis means to break down. So this H2O when break down into H plus and OH minus, it is called the hydrolysis. And in hydrolysis process, these H plus and OH minus directly reacts with the minerals and they liberated the metal cations. Like if you see the example, this is the pyroxene reacted with the water, and then here Mg2 plus is liberated and here forming silicic acid and bicarbonate ion. Another example you can take that this one is sodium feldspar, or you can say plesioclase alvite, or especially alvite react with the carbonic acid and water, then they changes into sodium ion. They liberated after the reaction of the H plus and OH minus, they liberated sodium ion and bicarbonate silicic acid, and they forming the clay minerals. It is called kaolinite. So the conclusion is that in hydrolysis, the reaction which takes place after the dissociations of water into H plus and OH minus, and this H plus and OH minus work as a liberation of the metal cation from that silicate minerals. Now the important fact is that if in the mineral there is a presence of aluminum in the mineral, then they will generally go into the breakdown of clay minerals. What I'm saying, that if the aluminum is present in the silicate minerals, then after the hydrolysis generally they goes to the kaolinite, and these kaolinite after further intense weathering generally they changes into bauxite. So kaolinite changes into bauxite if there is a abundance of aluminum for the increases or intense weathering has happened, then this kaolinite will changes into bauxite. So the bauxite is you can say that it is indication of mature stage, while kaolinite is indication of the immature or submature stage. Further, before this, the smectite and elite are immature, while kaolinite is submature, while bauxite is indicating that the very mature stage of weathering or very intense weathering condition, right? So if the aluminum is present in the silicate minerals, then they goes generally into the kaolinite phases and that kaolinite after further weathering will changes into bauxite. So this is all about the hydrolysis. So look at the next reaction, hydration and dehydration. What is this hydration? As the name suggested, we generally frequently uses this term in day-to-day life, that we should have to hydrate this one, and we are dehydrated, that's why we feel less energetic. Hydration means simply the addition of H2O in the minerals phases. Addition of H2O in the mineral phases, while dehydration is removal of H2O from mineral phases. Correct? So hydration is addition of H2O in the mineral phases, mineral structure, while dehydration is removal of the H2O from mineral phases. For example, hydration, if we take the example CaSO4 plus H2O, then it converted into CaSO4 into 2H2O. You all know this is called anhydrite, and this is called gypsum. So this is the example of hydration. Further, one more example is of hydration is Fe2O3 plus H2O, then it changes into FeO into OH. This is called geotherite, and it is your hematite. So simply the hydration is addition of water, but dehydration is simply if the reaction is removed by some causes, if water is lost from the crystal structure, then we call the dehydration. Dehydration is not normal condition, because we generally not found the dehydration in mineral phases. Why? Because if weathering is taking place, generally some water is always present there. So dehydration is not the normal condition or not normal behavior. It is a very abnormal, or it is not generally found in the mineral that dehydrated in terms of weathering and erosion, because small water is always present. So hydration is a very common phenomena, but dehydration is a not very common phenomena. So this is simply hydration and dehydration. The next one is ion exchange reaction. Okay, so look at here, ion exchange reaction. So what happens here? Sometimes H plus ion or K plus ion generally replaces the Ca2 plus ion. K plus ion generally replaces the Ca2 plus ion in the structure. Or suppose some clay mineral like smectite converted into elite, or elite converted into kaolinite by exchanging their cation. Generally exchanges happen between cations, but anions can also exchange their ions, but most frequently cations changes their ions from one to each other, and that is why the mineral phase changes to one form to another form. Generally in clay mineral it is a common phenomena where a smectite changes into elite changes into kaolinite. Elite is called potassium bearing clay minerals, where K plus generally interchanges into H plus ion. So it is important for the clay minerals. Now the next important phenomena that happen in the chemical weathering is oxidation and reduction. So look at here, what is oxidation and what is reduction? Oxidation and reduction. So oxidation, simply we define the addition of oxygen. In simple word we called addition of oxygen is called oxygen, or you can say removal of hydrogen. Or in different terms, suppose that if we take the example Fe2 plus converted into Fe3 plus. So the oxidation charge here is 2 plus and here is 3 plus by gaining the why losing the one electron. Fe2 plus, after losing the one electron, it converted into the Fe3 plus. Losing the electrons means their charge will increase. Suppose Na when lose their one electron, then it transfer and converted into Na plus. 1 plus charge indicated they loses their one electron from their outermost shell. What here Fe2 plus is when loses one electron from the cell, then it converted into the Fe3 plus. So we called here the oxidation is taking place. So oxidation is most important phenomena for the iron bearing silicate minerals. For example, in many iron bearing silicate minerals like olivine, pyroxene, biotite, and these silicate minerals generally show very good example of oxidation. Look at the some example of oxidation. Suppose Fe2 SiO4, so called olivine plus 4H2O plus O2, 2Fe2O3 plus 2H4 SiO4. So that is converted olivine plus water, they changes into iron phase hematite. So after the oxidation olivine changes into hematite. Another example we can say that when the pyroxene also changes some in mineral phases. So always remember that these oxidation processes generally important for iron rich minerals, not for the all minerals. Oxidation is most important for that silicate minerals which is more enriched in the iron, because they show the very good example of changes in environment due to the oxidation and reduction. And reduction is just the opposite phases to gain the electron is called reduction. Suppose on somehow Fe3 plus changes into Fe2 plus by gaining the one electron, then we call this is the reduction. Right now, okay, so this is the oxidation and reduction. So this is the few basic processes that happen in the chemical weathering. Chelation is something like that organic activity. In this activity, the liberation of the metal cation is there, and after the liberation, they act as a chelating agent. And the work of chelating agent is that they enhances the weathering rate. Suppose in previous diagram you say that the Al2 plus and other minerals are not very susceptible for the weathering, but after the work of chelation, they Al2 plus and Mg2 plus are going to be more mobile in the solution. That is the work of chelating agent, and that chelating agent regulated these ions into the mobile state. After that the weathering is taking place. So this is the not direct processes, this is the organic involvement structure. Then generally they produces by the organic structure, ring like a structure. After the production of the chelation or chelating agent, these materials are removed, and after the removal of these going to the in the solution, weathering is regulated, enhanced by that chelating agent. So this is the overall of the chemical weathering. If we summarize all the chemical weathering what we discussed in tabulated form, then you can say simple congruent weathering, the congruent solution, that means there is a complete dissolution. Suppose SiO2 plus 2H2O, then it is forming the silicic acid. Suppose CaCO3, this is called carbonation. CaCO3 plus H2O plus CO2. After the liberation of Ca2 plus and bicarbonate, then it forms this process is called, and this Ca2 plus react with the CO3 2 minus and forming CaCO3. These are called carbonation. Hydrolysis, incongruent dissolution, where breaking of the H plus and OH minus ion, and they reacted with the silicate minerals and liberated the metal cation and forming the new mineral phases. In oxidation, there is a addition of oxygen or removal of hydrogen, or you can say there is a loss of one electron. There is a process called oxidation. After that, hydration and dehydration. We understand that hydration is simply the addition of the water, and dehydration is something removal of the water. Ion exchange, where one clay mineral transferred into other clay mineral. Generally the transfer of cations is generally taking place, but anion can also place, but generally we see that the cation is exchanged their cations. And other is chelation, their metal ions are liberated, and that chelating agents play an important role to enhance the weathering condition. So this is overall short in short the chemical weathering. We are not going to deal here for the chemical weathering products or any weathering products. That will be the part of geomorphology. So now we will see the weathering rates. You all may study the Bowen's reaction series. So Bowen's reaction series is about the crystallizations from different temperature. Like suppose this one is started at suppose 1800 degrees Celsius, and this one is in decreases suppose that 1000 degrees Celsius. Then by these temperature differences, how the mineral crystallizes and which mineral phases will crystallizes, we will see in the Bowen's reaction series. But how it says about the weathering rates and weathering condition. So generally summarize the what is the Bowen's reaction series is like this, but the weathering susceptibility series is just reverse of the your Bowen's reaction series. As we go down from the olivine to quartz, the susceptibility for the weathering, or you can say the resistance of that mineral increases. Why increases? In mineralogy, you may all study the after the crystallization at higher temperature. When temperature decreases, the polymerizations in the silicate minerals rapidly increases. As the temperature decreases, the polymerizations frequently increases. So what it terms? If polymerizations in the minerals increases, then their bond strength also increases. If their bond strength will increases, and suppose in olivine group they belong to nesosilicate. So the polymerizations is minimum in nesosilicate and maximum in tectosilicate, that belongs to tectosilicate, quartz, feldspar and other this mineral. So there is a maximum polymerizations here, and that is why they are maximum resistant mineral for the weathering. So for the weathering, what happens in weathering? There is a breaking of the bond by the actions of either water, either different chemical agents. So if the bond will be stronger and stronger by the maximum polymerization, obviously then the effort will be maximum to break the bond. That is why the quartz and other minerals that crystallizes below in tectosilicates are more resistant in comparison to the nesosilicate minerals. So this trend is showing the trend that is quartz is the most resistant, followed by muscovite, feldspar, Na plagioclase, and that's followed. So weathering tends to be more effective on low to moderate slope. What it means compared to a steep slope. So how we explain this? Weathering tends to be more effective on low to moderate slope. It means that suppose this one is the slope, and if I say that this one is sediment, so if this one is, let us see that this is the moderate slope. So if sediment is here and here, if they start sliding down, so slope is, if gentle or moderate, sediment can stay here for a longer time. But if there is slope is steep, then sediment will frequently slide and get deposited somewhere else. So for the weathering, if the sediment will stay here and the transporting agent like water and other material, also other fluids also stay here, so they will in contact with the for the longer time. If the water is in contact with the for longer time, obviously they will enhance the weathering, because in a steeper slope the sediment will erode and frequently. So for the water it is not more time to took the chemical composition or chemical reaction. So on the mildy slope or low gentle slope the weathering is more in comparison to the steep slope, because on the steep slope the behavior of the sediment is always deposited and running through the slope. So the weathering is obviously low to moderate slope there is a maximum in comparison to the steep slope. Weathering processes proceed at different rate depending upon climate and mineral composition and grain size of rocks undergoing weathering. Obviously now this is the most important and practical aspect, that weathering is dependent on the climate condition. And here you can add one more term is topography. Okay, so weathering is mostly on practical scale will depend how the climate is there and how is the topography there, how is the composition of minerals and other things. It will decide, climate will decide there the process of the weathering will be chemical or will be physical or any other processes or biological, because we will see it later in this video how the climate regulate the weathering processes. Okay, so now let us see the subaerial weathering product. Subaerial weathering product, what it means? Subaerial weathering products, that means we are not going to discuss the weathering pattern in the ocean sedimentation. We are going to only the continental subaerial, that is exposed to the earth surface and weathering product in context of sedimentology. So subaerial weathering product is generally divided into, or products are categorized into three parts: source rock residue, secondary minerals and soluble materials. So what is source rock residue? What happens generally, if in situ places if weathering happens, then there is some resistant minerals like quartz, feldspath or any other resistant minerals generally residue there, and they are not weathered at that place, or if that resistant mineral may get deposited at that place, other places from their source of sediment. So source rock residue is, suppose here sandstone is there or limestone is there. So sandstone, quartz if get deposited in somewhere else and not weathered completely and not dissolved completely in the mineral phases and get deposited, then this is called the source rock residue. That means that is coming from their source rock, not is the new mineral phases, not transformed into new minerals. That is the completely older and source rock residue. Secondary mineral is something like after the chemical weathering they changes into new mineral phases, like once after the hydrolysis you see that by the incongruent dissolution they changes into clay minerals. Clay minerals and iron oxides are most frequently the secondary minerals. So these clay minerals then generally indicate the weathering conditions, and after the dissolution of that minerals they transform into the clay. Suppose that if there is aluminum present in the parent rock, or so if aluminum is present, then generally they lead to the formation of clay mineral, and these clay minerals are changes into further intense weathering. After the intense weathering they will changes into the bauxite. So bauxite always indicate the mature soil, while a smectite and illite indicate the immature soil, and it is formed in the intense weathering and leaching condition. So the secondary mineral is that is formed after the dissolution of the parent minerals, then it is called the secondary. And soluble material, some minerals are get dissolved in the solution and the residue is not present there, so that is called the soluble material, sometimes vogeled. So these are generally three products that is happen in source rock residue, secondary minerals and soluble materials. Okay, So now look at this is all about the chemical weathering and their sub-aerial products. Now look at some very few the physical weathering. Physical weathering is not very important in respect to the sedimentology, but let us see some. So obviously, first of all, let us see in physical weathering, freeze and thaw processes. Freeze and thaw process. What is happen? What happens when there is a fractures in rock and generally in polar region or in where the temperature generally fluctuates 0 degrees Celsius. There what happens? Generally water injected into that fractures, and in fractures, if they crystallizes into fracture, then we all know the water expanded about 9% of its original volume after the freezing. So these extra volume create the stresses on the rock, and after that it may be widen the fractures. Due to that, the fractures will take place at that places. So freeze and thaw is important phenomena in the polar region generally. The next one is insolation weathering. Insolation weathering, as the name suggested, it is due to the differential heating. Like if temperature in day is something else like 35 or 40, and in night there is a 4 degree 10 degree, so they create generally the thermal gradient. Thermal gradient, and that gradients generally after the day by day they generally create the weakness in the rock, or generally a small fractures that the rock surfaces expand and more than interior creating the stresses. That is why that's also regulate the fractures in the rock. So insolation is also one of the most important phenomena of the physical weathering. Now the third one is a stress release for the physical weathering. What happens? Suppose that this rock is worried for a longer and longer time. If by some processes, some causes, if they exposed abruptly, then obviously if it is suppose that it is under the stress of 10 GPa, and after the exposes it suddenly changes into 2 GPa, 5 GPa, then obviously these changes of a stress from the burial to uplift will create various joint set and various fractures in the rock, because tensile fracture, because in the load they get settled at that condition, and if after the upliftment the changes from that condition stress, then definitely they will create the weakness plane in the rock. So a rock unit worried below a land surface experiences high compressional stress because of the weight of because we all know the hydrostatic press rho GH will always for the will taking place, and this process if we go below and below after the depth, then this pressure will increases. So if some of the overlying rock is removal by erosion, compression stress on the rock unit are reduced and the rock unit rebounds upward. Expansion of the rock upward creates tensile stresses. That's what we discussing, that they create after the sudden upliftment or sudden release of a stress, they created the tensile strength and they causing the fracture to develop that are the oriented nearly parallel to the surface topography of the surface. So this is the stress release phenomena. Next one is salt weathering. Salt weathering, what happens here? It is generally the important phenomena in the coastal region. In coastal region, what happens generally? The dissolved material they generally get deposited in the fracture plane, and after the removal of the evaporation of the water, that material get crystallized and they create the stress to the nearing, and after a long time their growth generate force and they are capable of to widen the fracture of that material. So this is the salt grade. Generally they are always remember that it is important in the coastal region. Now look at one of the most important is aspheroidal weathering. in some book, or if you will search on the Wikipedia, then spheroidal weathering they included in the chemical weathering, and in but if you will go through the books, then they included in the physical and combined. Generally what happens here, the combined effect is happens, and we see that there is some actions of water is also taking place, and there will be in all books of geology like Sambog and all, they included in the physical weathering right now. So what happens here, the mechanism is, suppose that in spheroidal weathering, this is the smaller scale. Suppose this jointed place, this is the corner, and in corner support if their joint is present, then in inward there is some forces that acting towards from each of the faces, from here and from here. After a longer time, joint system rock body, and they creates the angularity in that joints. After a longer time, on each block, weathering process inward from the joint faces, that creates the some kind of angular, or after the corners are rounded more or less after the time, after some times, and that skins are generally if they spell off from their original places, then we called it the spheroidal weathering. So spheroidal weathering is layers or skins to spell off to produce a spheroidal cores. This one is called a spheroidal cores. The fractures that separate the weathering grains may form in response to a stress release or possibly thermal changes. So generally in books they included these changes, but don't get confused. If in the option they included the combined effect, that is the best, otherwise may go for the physical weathering, right now. Okay. So this one is what it looks like, the spheroidal. This one is called core of the spheroidal weathering. Exfoliation is the extended extension of the spheroidal weathering, in which the layer by layer a spelling of the if taking place, then it is called the exfoliation. So now the one of the most important things which what we discussing earlier, that the climate plays very important role in the weathering. So what happens here, if you can see this diagram, how the climate regulate. Okay, so look at here, this is the reason like very low temperature, -20 degrees Celsius, -10 degrees Celsius and 0 degrees Celsius. Obviously in this region, for chemical weathering, to regulate the chemical weathering, there is two very basic condition is temperature and water. So without these two terms, these two things, the chemical weathering will not regulate. So in this condition, you can see that in -20 degrees Celsius, -10 degrees Celsius, there is a temperature is very low. So in this condition, that chemical weathering is very less, or there is no any chemical weathering is happen. In this region, you can expect the mechanical weathering, either freeze and thaw weathering, either other type of mechanical due to the freeze and thaw crystal growth or in the fracture. But if you will increase the temperature like 10 degree, 20 degree and 30 degree, then you can see that the chemical weathering will start it. But only the temperature is not sufficient for chemical weathering. You can see on the ordinate places the precipitation. So along with the temperature, the precipitation is also one of the most important thing that regulate the chemical weathering. So in this region where temperature and precipitation is maximum, chemical weathering will happen. This region where temperature and precipitation is maximum, then chemical weathering is happen. If you reduce the precipitation and increase the your temperature, but still the chemical weathering will decreases moderate. But if you increases both temperature and precipitation, then obviously chemical weathering will increases. But in this region, you can see that only generally physical weathering will regulate. You can see in separate form in that, like a strong, moderate in this condition, the physical and this mechanical, because you increases the precipitation but temperature is about -20 and -10 degrees Celsius. In that condition also the chemical weathering will not very efficient. In this condition you can see that the chemical weathering will take place, combined chemical and mechanical combined action, if there is, because of here precipitation is enough, so here chemical weathering will take place. But this is the most important reason for the chemical weathering, because here temperature is also favorable and precipitation is also favorable. So this is the summarized way how the climate reacts on the different environment on the either it will happens the chemical weathering or it will happens the physical weathering. So this is the overall of your chemical and physical weathering. We earlier said that we will not going to discuss the product of the chemical and physical weathering. In the next lecture video we will start the fundamentals of fluid. This is the small or fundamentals of fluids. Now we understand the basics of the weathering and erosion and especially chemical weathering processes. Now in the next lecture video we will understand the behavior of the fluid when it is laden with the sediment. So for this it is completed weathering. So in the next video we will see later.